Greetings folks, Performance Reviews, where I give you the review from the technician's point of view. I don't usually do retro vacuums, but this one, it's pretty special. It's a Kirby G3. And we are in the most retro part of my house. My house was made in 1991, so it very much goes along with the theme of this Kirby. In fact, we are on some of the only original carpet left in the house, and some original artwork that was left by the previous owners that my wife will not let me rip down. So all that aside, let's talk about the Kirby G3, because this is, for the most part, the same vacuum they're still selling 30 years later, maybe 31 years later, depending on when you look at it. Some of the early Kirby G3s are stamped 1989, but this one is of April of 1990, and it is a early G3, which means it has, that's right, it has the clear emptier, so you can see what Kirby treasures you vacuumed up. This also doesn't have the, let's remove the clear emptier, show you the clear emptier. This one, well, other than it's missing a hubcap, it doesn't have a hole here for the electrical cord. That's because originally they were not screwed down with that plastic bit. I have painstakingly restored this one the best I can. I even went so far as to get a new logo for you there. This machine is in every bit original as it can be. I still have the gray Kirby fan in there. And if you don't know, Kirby fans have moved to a stronger material, but the older Lexan fans like these tended to break. So this one even has that. So this machine looks the best it can. It came to me all duct taped up and messed up. But let's talk about the Kirby G3 story, because that's what's most interesting to me about this machine. The Kirby G3 story, and I'll put a link in the description because it's actually on Kirby's website, but it's shot in 280p. Not 480p, not 720p, 280p, so super low res. But they show a development team. They hired this new engineering team, and it was $25 million. You know, if for some reason you were working for Kirby during that time, not door to door, I mean actually working for Kirby in that development team, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to sit down and do an interview, because this machine really did change a lot with Kirby. It was the first machine with the self-propel. If we look in here, we have the drive and the neutral pedal, which are one piece. They did not actually split the pedal up back then. Okay, we're going to talk about this knob right here, because this is a control that disappeared from later Kirbys and was relocated over here. So what this does is it keeps the handle from going all the way down, so you can lift the Kirby up, set it on the rug, go over a threshold, something like that. Now if we push this in, then the Kirby handle will lie well as flat as a Kirby handle goes. Now if I go to pull this out, I can't pull this out and actually lock the handle in the down position like a newer Kirby. So that is a quirk of the G3. Now another quirk of the G3 are the vertical vents. They were later changed to horizontal and kind of angled a little bit more upward, trying to keep debris from blowing out. This also has a filter which catches the carbon dust and keeps ambient dust from being recirculated. So I think this is a really nice addition. I wish they had kept this and had some sort of insert that was more user serviceable. Unfortunately, the only way to get to this filter is taking the cover off and getting deep down almost to the motor to get that thing out. It's kind of a hard thing to get to. You know, I went years without knowing what the hell this slot was on top of Kirby's. So apparently you're supposed to stop and put your change into the Kirby to help pay it off, or you're supposed to save for the next Kirby, depending on the salesman you talk about. I'm not sure why you put your coins in there. I've always thought that was a little bit weird. And then you have pocket change in your Kirby. Let's see what that sounds like. It just sounds so weird to have pocket change loose in your Kirby. I don't think really anybody ever used this feature. I was discussing this one day with a fellow coworker when I found this out. He's like, yeah. I've had one customer come in who kept money in there. He didn't keep change. He put $100 bills in there. And I guess when he dropped his Kirby off, he left the store and went right back in and said, excuse me, and then pulled his money out of his Kirby. Now I want to show you what this looks like as we get to the Kirby piggy bank. That was not exactly graceful, was it? So, yeah, your money would be stuck there. Kind of a weird concept from Kirby. So that's why the screw on the earlier model Kirby's was a hand screw for removing that. Now they would later change this screw to have metal threads, and eventually they'd move away from this altogether and just put a Phillips screw there. Alright, we are going to get to the mini emptier. And trust me folks, I'm not getting political on you, but you're supposed to use a newspaper, and it's 2020 and newspapers are not a widespread thing anymore. So let's pull the mini emptier off. As you can see, there's not much in there. Some of the breakfast cereal, a little bit of cat litter got stuck in there. And that is the bell housing effect. And I hope you guys can see the clear emptier because it's really cool. And all the debris in there is from me just playing around with it, using it in my house. As you can see, it doesn't stay clear very long, much like a bagless vacuum in that way. But it's really cool to see the clear emptier. In fact, I wish they had kept the clear emptier. If they made this all the way clear so that you could see the stuff going in there, that would just be super cool. So if anybody in Kirby is watching, there's something you should have done with the Apple Air 2. And that just twists back on, and we can see what I have there. We'll move Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders out of the way now. Going to the bag change, I wanted to show you kind of what I've been vacuuming. I really have liked using this. It's got a certain charm on it. It matches my house. You can see I've put a bit of stuff into this modern high-flow HEPA bag. Now, of course, the G3 also had this older style fill tube that was not crush-proof. This corrugated fill tube, it's really, really thin and has a tendency to get holes in it. If you have one of these, you should change this out probably every 4, 5, 6 years. That needs to be changed out. The other thing we saw with the G3 is we had this matching, man, I love this. I just love this. This tickles me. We have this matching strap here. We pull this off, and you'll notice the cuffs on the bag here are not very big compared to the later models. And that caused some of the bags to blow off later, and they would later change this. But that's not been a problem with the newer style HEPA bags. They actually have they actually adjusted the size of this hole in the gasket, kind of keep that from happening to people who have the older machines like this. Put this back on. So I just wanted to show you the inside of this. And as you can see, I actually vacuumed and washed the inside of this, and it came clean just fine. Another kind of quirk about the bag, while we're on the bag, is the bag is on there. You can see the Scott Spitzer logo, but this is, it's like solid metal under here. I have no idea why they did that, but the top of the bag is solid metal, and they would later change this, you know, the G5, maybe even the G4. This would become just pliable rubber because it didn't need to be anything else. We're going to do a story time. We're just going to go through the manual because it's so cool. The congratulations, you just bought a Kirby. We have my original owner slip there, the safety instructions, and feel free to fast forward this, but this manual has just some real gems, and I just kind of want to share them with you and just kind of turn the pages with me. This is obviously the tip of somebody in high heels, because how else would you vacuum if you owned a Kirby? Upright and portable cleaner. And again, if you own a Kirby, all this is kind of probably pretty standard. Oh, you know what I don't have? I do not have this hard floor pad. I need to get one of those. That would be kind of an interesting thing. I think they later would discontinue those and then recontinue it later during the Centria. We have the awkward vacuuming, hose attachment. Just all this is just good stuff, and this was hand illustrated. This is really before they had you know, computer drawing and stuff. So I really like that. You know, well, I guess they did have computer drawing, but it just wasn't common. And you can see in the background of the Kirby video just kind of how that is. So I'm just going through page by page what's here. I just really want, there's a lot in here about this guy. I am surprised there is so much in here about this, how to put the straw in and all that, really detailed stuff. That's how to use dry foam, you know, optional accessories. Shampooer, which I don't have. I kind of feel like I need to get one of those now, though I would never use it. It really doesn't clean very well. The floor care kit is interesting. I'd like to give that a try someday. And this hard floor plate, I'd love to track one of those down as well. And a matching sander would be nice as well if it's Kirby G3 colored. A zip brush, which we have. And then some maintenance tips on here. Some more maintenance tips. Kirby cleaning products they want you to buy. Our index, and then this beautiful color, whatever you want to call this, hand-drawn thing. Really a nice illustration. You can see the yellow one-layer bag the machine would have originally had as well. And that is my bill of sale as well. And just like the thumbnail of the video. Now I want you folks to remember that this has the older style fan in it, so the results of this are going to be different than if you had the newer style manila fan in it. Let's give it a whirl. Sea level. Now I'm not going to test it with the nozzle like I did the G10 the other day. I don't want to put any more stress on this old fan since they're not easy to come by. I have laid out all the Kirby accessories that came with this Kirby, and my understanding is really the only optional thing would be the zip brush over here, and then again the shampooer, which I don't have with mine. I don't really care about that. I'm not going to use that, but I just wanted to show you all the stuff it comes with. And I guess this would have been impressive back in 1999. I want to say 9, but it's 1990 is when this would have been impressive, I guess, having this spiel of stuff out here. Now, Kirby's have always had all these accessories, but again, this is the Generation 3. This was the latest model. And for all intents and purposes, really the only thing they've changed in today's Kirby, I would say, are these two tools have been changed. This is now square, and this has been updated. They've also eliminated the plastic caddy in today's Kirby's, which is kind of a shame. They've gone with like a soft bag, because this caddy wasn't expensive to make. It's, you know, this is particularly cheap, malleable plastic. I remember having a conversation with one of my collector friends who said, "Oh, don't put that in the dishwasher; it will melt." I said, "It'll be fine," but it's a worry in some. Also, there are drain holes I just noticed on the bottom of the caddy, so that's kind of thoughtful in case you put back a wet accessory. Like, you could definitely put this thing back wet. I'm going to explain the suction accessories, because there's also some blower accessories as well. So you have your hose, which has this grippy stuff and this nice angle to be used as a crevice tool. You also have a crevice tool, which has this little brush for like radiators and stuff right there. You have your floor tool, which also locks and could double as a wall brush, I suppose. It's a real interesting that it does that on there. You have your other, this is like a wall brush or a big dusting brush, and this has soft nylon. It's not actually horsehair on these accessories, which is interesting because they seem to use horsehair on their dusting brush. Like I said earlier, I really like the dusting brush. This comes with, we have a upholstery tool, which should have a small insert on top, but it never gets any felt pickers, any lint pickers like this guy did. Very curious that they have the lint pickers as a part, but they never put them on their upholstery tool. You have your angle grip on there, and then you comes with 2 wands as well. Those just go right there. There's just room for everything in here. So I wasn't even going to bring the camera out today, but I had to share some things while I was vacuuming with my G3. So just for the heck of it, I wanted to do my whole house just to get the full experience. So one of the things they've changed from the G3 to modern Kirby's is this floor tool. And this floor tool, as you can see, is a little different than any ones you've seen. And it doesn't articulate in the up position as much. So what that means is somebody who's short like my wife, this would be perfect for. But somebody above 6'3", or 6 foot, you know, like me, you can see it just lifting off the ground. And that was a problem. The other thing that happens is the nozzle actually locks flat like that. So you can do walls, I guess. I'm not exactly sure the purpose of that. But it locks like this. So if you get stuck on a rug, you can actually accidentally lock it, and then it's not in the right angle. Really frustrating. The other thing I noticed was, even though when you're using it with the tools, the Kirby goes to its higher setting, it still lacks so much power. I tried to vacuum my room with the cat litter, where the cat box is at, could not do it. Did one pass, and I just, you know, I'm usually barefoot when I vacuum. I know that bothers a lot of people. But I could feel the cat litter on the floor in there, and I was like, what the heck? So I put the same tool on the end of my central vacuum, and it worked much better. It's still really narrow. To give you an idea how much narrow this tool is, let's grab the nozzle right here. So you can see how narrow that is compared to the nozzle. It's about 2/3 as wide. And again, that's because the Kirby lacks a lot of power. So, very strange. I have now configured my Kirby as a blower. So one thing I've always liked is, no matter what Kirby generation, they've always made the blower attachment really suck in. And this puts the machine on a high mode, as you can see. And there's a small filter grill in there. It's more of a screen than a filter. It's very coarse. You could definitely suck in a bunch of dust with that. So you could use this as a blower. Now, I always thought this was weird because you've used the same hose here to suck up a bunch of dirt, and dirt usually gets stuck in these hoses. You can put them in the washing machine, usually gets stuck. So to me, it would make more sense that the blower have its own hose. Again, they never did that. But I'm not going to turn the blower on in my house. I don't want to breathe the dirt. But this is the inflator. This is the massage cup, which you can use sucking or blowing. And I've seen it described both ways depending on the age of the Kirby manual. But this actually blows. I guess I could blow it into my central vac if I had that on as well. But that's the blower. And then this is what they call the sudzo gun, which has its own. There's actually 2 pages in the manual that show you how to assemble the sudzo gun. They show you putting the straw in, filling it up. It's actually marked fill line, but there's no granulated measurements. And for some reason, they made this square. That was an interesting styling choice on that. And that just goes there. And then you would press this, and it would sudzo gun out this guy. Or you could use it to spray application things. They used to describe it as that. Again, the problem with that is there's dirt coming out of this when you're doing this. So very, very strange stuff from Kirby. And again, in 1990, they did know better. And the fact that this has basically been perpetuated in a 2020 model is rather absurd. So now it's time to take the nozzle cover off. And we'll put the nozzle back on like so. And now we have the world's heaviest and least portable hand vac. The fact that they would even suggest that somebody would do this, because again, we're picking up about 20 pounds here, maybe more. And it's just really hefty and awkward, and these always feel like they're going to come off. I've never actually had that happen, but I always feel that way. The other thing is weird is it extends the cord a little bit. There's no place to clip the strain relief on the cord, and it can cause a lot of stress on that section of the cord as well. Just for fun, I've set this on my couch. Maybe I can use the self-propelled with this. Oh yeah, that works nicely for couch cleaning. The suggested use of this was always stair cleaning, which, as you can see, any way you put this, and these stairs are fairly big. I can fit a Henry or a Mila on these stairs any which way. But still, this nozzle is not going to fit on there. So you're supposed to do this, I guess, and then yeah. So that's just one of the most ridiculous things I think Kirby ever came up with, especially with the Generation machine. I think this made more sense on the smaller nozzles of the past machines, if anybody's ever seen those. Kirby's used to be a lot smaller. That would make a little bit more sense. But on this big machine, wow. What a trouble. Hey, speaking of accessories, the Kirby does one of my favorite things that vacuum cleaners do, which you can move a handle grip at a certain angle, straight pipe it, so when you need to do your dusting, oh my gosh. That it does very, very well. And I'll tell you what, there are other vacuums that do this, like the Henry, that did this at about the same time. But this is kind of a pleasure with the Kirby. The other thing is, the wands all have this textured grip on them with the Kirby logo, so it makes doing this kind of pleasurable. Well, let's do the carpet pickup test, which is flour, breakfast cereal, cat litter, and some fresh pet hair. Let's see how it does on our Kirby. Granted, this machine has been fully restored. It's still 30 years old, so let's see how it does. Well, picked up the flour. Oh, and it snowplowed some of the breakfast cereal around and some of the cat litter, and it left right in the middle this piece of nice big piece of chunk of animal hair. Little bit of animal hair left on the side. And, you know, for a 30-year-old machine, this isn't bad. However, the new machines that they're selling door-to-door based on this same design are no different. And I want to... I'll take the nozzle off. I'll show you kind of why it does that. It kind of makes sense when you look at the nozzle. So, the cat litter in the middle. You see this big ingest bar that covers the belt. Well, there's no agitation in the middle, therefore no hair is going to be picked up. Now, another thing that happens... Right here, you can see some of the debris in the nozzle. And that's because the Kirby does not have enough suction power to get to the corners of the nozzle and lift those heavy objects. It's got plenty of airflow, but without the suction to back it up, this stuff ends up just kind of going back into the carpet, back on the floor. Again, when the machine's on, that's just fine, but when you turn the machine off is where that problem lies. Also, there's a lot of air turbulence with this being a square design as well. Now, I heard somebody refer to the nozzle as a bell housing the other day. I thought that was really funny. The bell housing is the shape of this fan. Alright, folks, we're going to do a bare floor test with the old school floor nozzle, which I wasn't really a fan of when I tried it in my home. The angle is off for how tall I am. I'm sure it would be good for my short wife, but if you're above 6 feet, you're going to hate this tool. And I'm glad they changed it, but let's see how it does on our mess here. Now, if this was something that was still for sale, I'd probably give it a little bit more criticism here. But really, they did change this tool up. And as you can see, it kind of just snow plows stuff everywhere. And this was the problem when I tried this to clean up my cat litter one day. I actually went through my whole upper floor of my house and used the G3 because I thought it was so cool. And I was really excited that I had it and I rebuilt it. And then I tried using the hard floor tool, and I just about wanted to shoot myself. And now you can see my frustration. This was a small area. I cannot imagine anybody actually using this for hard floor pickup. And again, I'm glad Kirby switched the tool up to a better tool. Still, definitely not a hard floor machine. Now, another thing about the Kirby is often I see Kirby salesmen talk about how it can be converted to a canister. Well, there's no casters on this thing. So if you go to pull this, it will like mar your floor or something horrible. So you end up having to like pick it up and move it like so, and really have to guide it. And this is a hassle. This would make me hate this machine if this was the only machine I had. Again, this was made about the same time my house was made, so it's not unlikely that something like this could have been sold to the original homeowner where I lived. But gosh, there were better options back in 1990. Though, again, it's still cool to see here in 2020, 30 years later. In the sake of sanity, let's try a proper bare floor tool. Now this bare floor tool is far more modern. On the end of this Kirby. Oh, that's the job done. Now, the Kirby uses this 1¼ inch plus fitting. I'm going to call it a plus fitting because these are all really tapered with this aggressive texturing. Just out of curiosity, let's see if it could spin up a TK 286. Alright, I got the 286 on the end and we're in carpet. Let's see if it can spin it up. It does not have enough power for the TK 286, as showed with the working vacuum gauge. It stops immediately when I put it on my carpet, but it was just kind of an example of you can put whatever accessories you want on that bit. So I want you all to know how long a Kirby review takes to do compared to other vacuums, because you're always switching back and forth between all the tools. So I thought I'd show that live action just real quick. I'm pretty fast at it, but I cannot imagine trying to make some people do that. You know, not everybody has great motor skills. You know, I used to do a section on maneuverability where I would show a vacuum going around this coffee table. And for the G3, we're going to do that again. I kind of want to show it in action because it's fun. Now, you saw me lifting this Kirby like this, and that was to get some of the debris from the carpet pickup test that I still didn't vacuum up. crazy enough, I'll probably end up having a vacuum in here with my central vacuum after that, because this thing just doesn't pick up as well as I like. I also really don't use this room for anything else other than making videos. My wife does yoga in here sometimes, but the animals are basically never in here. And we vacuum it pretty often. We call it the cleanest room in our house. It doesn't get much traffic, which is one of the reasons why I usually do my carpet pickup tests in this room. But I think before I do the next review, I'm going to have to vacuum with something different. There's a lot of perception around Kirby being super powerful. And because the machine makes all this noise and it vibrates and it goes cha-chunk, 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 I think that helps really make that perception to people that this thing is super powerful, even when it's not. It's just making a lot of noise and a lot of vibration and really not doing all that much cleaning, but I have no idea what this is going to sound like, but I want to try to capture the ka-chunk of the transmission going back and forth and shifting. So I put the microphone on the handle. So again, headphone warning. Overall, I've really liked my G3 experience, despite taking forever to try to polish up. And, trying to get 30 years of duct tape off of Kirby is really hard. But I've enjoyed this experience. Now, in some of my other videos, some people have said I'm a Kirby hater, whatever. Well, I just don't see this as anything more than a 30-year-old machine, even if you buy a brand new Avalier 2 today. And I think the G3 has a lot of quirks and features they've removed from the Kirby that made it so charming. I don't think the new machines are nearly as pretty as the original G3 design. I think this was a very classic design, very much stuck in its time in the early 90s, which is when I was a child. So I remember things like the Berlin Wall falling. I remember this sort of gray color being on computers and all over all sorts of things from the 90s. So it's really nostalgic for me to play with this. And I've been vacuuming my house and on and off with this for the past few weeks, just really enjoying the machine. So I would recommend, if you're into vacuum collecting, pick yourself up a G3. Keep it from going to the dumpster. It's worth restoring. Now, is this a machine you should be buying for everyday use? I think you'd be better off getting a G10 for everyday use. The transmission is better on the G10. They've done some tuning on that. And then the additional airflow is a little bit better on the G10. It's not notably different. I noticed when I tested with the suction gauge on this machine that it was a little bit more powerful than when I tested my G10, so, go figure. That could be partially due to the old school fan. But I really like, the Kirby. I really like this machine. It's very nostalgic. I don't think this should be your only vacuum. It definitely does not deep clean. Without ragging on it too much, again, it's a 30-year-old machine, but when I went over 2 days later with my central vacuum in my bedroom, the stuff that you heard coming out of my central vacuum, you would think I hadn't vacuumed for a couple weeks. So, again, it's not a really deep carpet cleaner, despite a lot of people reporting that it is. It does remove really fine dust and top hair really well. It does not remove embedded dirt as well as some of the other vacuums we have today. And I will say I'm really glad there are bypass machines and we've moved away from this. I think this machine was really behind its time. When I compare this to something like the Hoover Concept 1, this just seems clunky and outdated. So I wonder, if I could go back in time and compare the other options of the day, would this seem as clunky as it does today? It kind of seems like it would. This doesn't seem as streamlined as some of the other machines were at the time, especially some of the other canisters. Go back to 1990, a Miele 200 series would seem like futuristic compared to this, and that was something that was on the market. Even some of the Panasonics and Kenmores just seem way ahead of this for its time. But again, the 90s styling and the looks of this machine really capture my heart. It's captured the heart of lots of vacuum collectors all over the place. So if you like this video, you like this G3, give us a thumbs up. Share this little bit of history with a vacuum friend of yours. Comment below. Tell me about your G3. I want to hear it. Do you have a G3? Tell me below. And if you really like what we're doing and you want us to continue being able to bring up you this content, consider going over to our Patreon page. I'll put a link in the description below.